Hi, my name is Sarah. I am the program coordinator for group fitness at Campus Recreational Services.
Hey, I'm Christian. I'm the graduate assistant for group fitness at Campus Rec.
And today we have a special guest. We have Russell here with us from the Wellness Center. Hi, Russell.
Hello. Oh, okay,
Do you
so I
want
introduce myself. Um, my name is Russell Argenal. I am the wellness educator for student wellness at UNLV. So I lead all public health programming for student wellness and essentially student affairs. And I'm also a doctoral student for the School of Public Health and a part-time instructor for the School of Public Health as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on with us today and doing this quick info session that we had today. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about mental health, kind of cover over what stress is versus anxiety, also some coping mechanisms as well too, and just how to inform yourself or how to reduce all that stress and tension you might have, especially with school and being in a pandemic. We know it's rough out here. So we definitely want to give you some resources because we are talking about stress and stuff like that. Definitely, if anything makes you feel uncomfortable, you can always bounce out of our video, but something might trigger you or anything like that. So just be aware that's what we're talking about today. But yeah, are you ready, you guys?
Yes.
Let's get after it.
Awesome. First, why don't we talk about anxiety? How about that? And what it is. Russell, can you kind of delve in and tell us a little bit about it?
Sure. Well, I think before I start, I just want to preface everything by saying I'm not a psychologist. So I am an educator though, so I can definitely give you the resources and a lot of education related to mental health, and that's more my specialty. And if anybody would want further assistance, if it's something that is really concerning for them, then they should definitely seek out health professionals for further assistance. But definitely for today's webinar, I'm going to be giving a lot of tips and resources that can definitely help you everybody out, especially for low risk situations. And so to answer your question, so what is anxiety? Um, Anxiety is essentially the feelings of worry, apprehension, fear, and panic that occur in a response to situations that seem overwhelming, threatening, unsafe, or uncomfortable. And I got that definition from the University of Illinois. It's essentially your body's way of telling you that you need to take action against something that's stressful or threatening or dangerous. So with anxiety, it's kind of an everyday feeling. Everybody is always going to have moments of anxiety. It's just normal day. I think when anxiety becomes overwhelming and counterproductive, that's when you need to start taking note and consider seeking help. But if you have moments of feeling anxious and stuff like that, that's perfectly normal.
I like that you mentioned that, Russell. I think some people don't realize that anxiety affects everyone, and for some people, they may cope easier, and some others, it may hit a little bit harder.
Yeah, anxiety is very different than an anxiety disorder. So anxiety disorders are excessive and persistent worries and fear about just doing everyday tasks. And then that also gets accompanied with feelings of terror or extreme fear, and that feeling comes instantly. So that's what's kind of different than just feeling anxious. Like people who have legit anxiety disorders, like it's to a heightened level.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, and with that too, it's not even just mental, right? Isn't you can also feel physical effects as well too, especially if you're having an anxiety attack or something like that.
Yeah, so with regards to anxiety, it can manifest in different ways for everybody. Um, and that's why it's very important for people to kind of just start taking note on when they're feeling anxious, how their body's responding to it. Some symptoms, I guess, of of the manifestation of anxiety can be like, feeling restlessness, feeling weak or tired, being irritable, not being able to concentrate. What else? Excessive worry, avoidance of the issues. There's even like physical symptoms, so like increased heart rate, increased breathing, muscle tension, feeling tired. So everybody can respond differently to anxiety. And the issue is, though, you should never ignore it, because anxiety is just not going to go away if you just like brush it off. It'll come back. So it's really trying to acknowledge what's happening and using like some coping skills and resources necessary to like deal with it.
Yeah, for sure. That's really great to know. So then what's the difference between anxiety and stress? Is stress just like a level below anxiety, or how would you describe that?
So stress is kind of like your body's way of responding to a change in like your environment. So for example, stress is not necessarily bad. There's good stress and there's bad stress. So we call that eustress and distress. So for example, positive stressors would be like, well, I guess this is subjective, but your first day of school, going on a first date, getting promoted, starting a new job, like those are positive stressors because it's still like a change in what's happening and you have to adapt to it. Negative stressors would be like, getting a speeding ticket, COVID, failing an exam, like those are negative stressors. And so either way, your body's still responding to that stress. But once that like stressor is removed, then like stress goes away. With anxiety, once that stressor's removed, sometimes it's still there. And so people are dealing with it constantly over and over again.
Yeah, awesome. So with that, how can you manage your stress so it doesn't manifest later on?
So I think if we talk about it more so on like an anxiety perspective, we should look at like scenarios on what like normal anxiety is versus like what a disorder would be. So like for example, let's say you have a final coming up or a midterm coming up, right? A normal anxiety response would be like being anxious while you're taking the exam because you didn't study, right? If you're feeling anxious because you didn't prepare, that's normal. Like you don't have anxiety because of that. Like that's legit, like a normal circumstance. However, if you spent weeks preparing and you're taking the exam and you start like to black out because you're super stressed out and you can't concentrate and it's like just overwhelming, that's a more of a like anxiety response that needs attention. So that's how kind of like you kind of differ between what's like normal levels of anxiety versus like higher levels. Now if we're gonna look at ways to kind of techniques to cope with like stressors and anxiety, I think like from my experience working in like health promotion and wellness, these four things really come up all the time with regards to like prevention. Like anything, whether it's chronic illnesses, mental health, etc. And those four things are proper nutrition, exercise, adequate sleep, and stress management. Like those four things are really the core of like prevention. If you're gonna look for more stuff though, mindfulness and meditation, changing your perspective and attitude. A lot of times it's the way you see things that can really help handle the situation. With anxiety, a lot of it comes with stress, and with us being university students, we tend to have packed schedules and take on too much. So a way to handle the stress response and anxiety response is prioritizing and looking at your schedule and knowing when you're taking on too much and taking note on activities that might just be overwhelming. Also, when people are super stressed out, they tend to personalize events. So you have to know that sometimes when you're in a negative situation, a lot of the times the root is not you. And so to not personalize stress. So for example, what I mean by that is like, let's say you're working in retail and you're having a customer roll their eyes at you. Like let's just that scenario. Or even at the gym, like if you're working the front desk and someone just coming at you and you all you said was like hello, right? They could just be having a bad day and you just happen to be in the line of fire, but it's really not about you, it's them, right? So a lot of but if you're super stressed out, just when it starts building up, those little things can build up to a point where you start like just personalizing it. So being able to just make sure that you know that a lot of things are out of your control and just working on accepting that fact can really help out. That takes practice though. It's not like you're just gonna watch this webinar and you'll have these skills and resources. It's like exercise. Mental health has to be practiced every single day. And if we're looking at UNLV resources, every UNLV student, faculty, staff has access to TAO. It's called Therapy Assisted Online. And if you look on CAPS's website, it will give you instructions on how to use TAO. And TAO essentially gives, it's an online application. People can access it on their phones or on the internet 24/7. And it gives you resources on how to deal with like stress, anxiety, depression, and so forth. And it's free for everybody. There's also, you can see the therapist at CAPS, or other resources in wellness, depending on the health issue. We all have support services ready for students. So, and then obviously, using the resources that we have at school to help with like stress management, which is like campus rec, the fitness classes, talking to your academic advisors, using the massage chairs in the wellness zone, and things like that.
Yeah, awesome. That's great. I think a lot of people don't realize like how much resources we have. I know when I was an undergrad, I was just, I don't know, I never used them
Mhm.
because I don't know why. And now that I'm an adult, I'm like, oh my gosh, like I wish I had all these free things that I had when I was an undergrad and never utilized when I was younger, for sure.
I know, but and since I'm talking to you guys about like campus rec, I wanted to point out that when you're exercising for stress like reduction, there is a difference between exercising for stress and exercising for like, aesthetics and your health, right? I mean, not necessarily health because it's all related, but what we say is like if you're exercising to decrease stress, do things you enjoy. Like if you don't want to run on the treadmill, don't do that. If you like dancing, take a dance class. If you don't like playing sports, why would you go and play basketball or why would you lift
Mhm.
weights? If you don't know what to do, if that's going to make you stressed out. Like the gym and the rec center has so many diverse activities to do that like going in and just even going for a walk on like the fourth floor can really help you out. But just doing stuff that you enjoy and that you feel confident in participating in can really help like reduce the anxiety and stress responses.
Yeah, that's really great that you point that out because I think a lot of people, when they do think of like exercising, they're like, oh, that's even more stressful because I'm going to the gym. I'm gonna have to do a workout that I don't know how to do a workout or something like that. And they forget like you can make it as fun as you want. You can make it swimming if you want, you can make it a group fitness class if you want to do that. I know a lot of people go to yoga when they think of
Mhm.
stress reducing, but then some people like can't sit still or have that moment. And yoga's not like relaxing to them because they want to do something active. So we have a lot of different things, especially like racquetball. I see a lot of people loving racquetball
Yeah.
at UNLV.
Um, and if just to like sometimes people like to drink energy drinks and caffeine like every day, right? And I get it because like at the gym it that gives people like energy essentially, in theory. But caffeine is has been shown to increase the stress response. So if you're increasing a lot of if you're intaking a lot of caffeine and you're about to enter a stressful situation, that might be counterproductive. So like drinking a lot of coffee right before an exam for some people may make them lose concentration and increase jittery feelings and all of that stuff. So we have to be intentional what we're putting into our bodies as well. Because it's
Yeah.
all related. Everything with the dimensions of wellness, they're all related.
And everything's so situational too, I feel like too. Because you think like, oh, I'm about to go take a big test. I'm gonna stop at, say, Starbucks or something like that and grab a coffee so it'll keep me awake. And then it might do the opposite and you're jittery the whole time while you're taking your test instead of actually focusing. So
Yeah, and then sorry if this is taking too long, but I also want to point out that if going to the gym is going to stress you out, because I want to I realize that COVID is we're still in COVID, right? We're in a pandemic right now. The rec center has done what they need to do to make sure that we are adhering to social distancing and hygiene guidelines that are recommended by the CDC as well as the state and local jurisdictions. If going to the gym is going to stress you out though, then and working at home or working out at home is your cup of tea, then do it. There are so many resources like the virtual fitness classes as well as stuff on YouTube that are free for students. But there's also research that shows that like just being in nature can really help the stress response. So being able to just walk outside and see trees. Well, we're in like the desert, so maybe see sand and lights. There's a calming effect with water, so if you can find water here in Vegas, like that would be helpful too. Some people like in their offices, they even put like pictures of nature around because there's something about being with nature really decreasing the stress response. Just FYI.
for sure. That's what I do in my office. I have I have some pictures of like nature in my office, and ironically, they have water in it. So
That's why
clearly,
it's
I'm
calm.
unconscious. I don't know if I'm a very calm person at all,
Mhm.
but yeah. And then your office likes to turn your lights off,
Yeah,
and
that's
when you
nature. It's
don't,
nighttime. It's
it's
mimicking night, the moon and stars.
for sure. So you mentioned a lot about like informing yourself, and you gave us a lot of information as well too. Um, it seems like just self-educating is a really good way to help reduce like any stressful or anxious environments pretty much.
Being the wellness educator for student affairs now for almost 2 years, pre and post COVID, not post COVID, pre and during COVID, um, I have learned that a lot of times many people are stressed out because of the unknown. Um, we are living, the term that media likes to use is novel, right? We're living in a novel time where it's this new virus that just stopped the world. And then, like, our local policies have changed sporadically, right? In about a week, we were all kicked off campus. And then some of us get put back on campus, some people, and then we get kicked off again. And then the literature that you see from a lot of websites are just inconsistent. And depending on this, now that we're all working remote, depending on the state you're in, the local policies regarding social distancing and hygiene and like, preventing COVID are different. I think there are around, I could be mistaken, so people need to fact check me on this, but as of today, there are around 15 to 20 states that still don't have a statewide policy for face masks. Las Vegas, our governor has mandated it for our area. And then I know that like Southern California, because I know a lot of students go back and forth from that area. Like Southern California, right, outdoor dining and stuff was closed, but we still had indoor dining. So all of this inconsistent like policies and programming from states can also be stressful. I think the only you can, and this is what I said before, you can really only control what you're in control of. Like you can't control what's happening around you. And so being informed by looking at, you know, the reputable websites, you know, like the CDC, like World Health Organization, like the coronavirus website that we have at UNLV, things like that will help you be more grounded in facts and science, versus, you know, Facebook posts and Instagram stories and all of these memes that we're seeing. Now, those are great for awareness and it definitely keeps the conversation going, but you want to make sure that what you're looking at is not fallacy and it is grounded in, you know, in scientific evidence. I think right now too, because of the vaccine, there are new stressors coming out. And so you have to remember that you are only in control of what you are in control of. And to be better informed will ultimately make you feel less stressed. I mean, there's still going to be anxiety and stress related to all of this because it's still happening. The information is still coming out, and that's going to be normal. But that's why also we have providers who are available to talk to you. Students don't realize this, but you know, you pay a student health fee so you can go use the student health center. I think obviously you have to make an appointment first, but you can also call providers and do an information session. So if people have questions about the vaccine or about COVID, they can call one of our physicians or nurse practitioners or providers at the health center, and they'll be happy to talk to students about it. You know, so little things like that can really help reduce the stress.
Yeah, for sure. Awesome. Well, is there anything else we want to talk about before we wrap up here? Anything I might have missed?
Russell, can you speak a little bit about why it's okay to seek help or kind of seek guidance? And maybe you're stuck in a little hole and you're kind of trying to figure out yourself. So, can you speak about why it's important and why it's okay to kind of reach out?
Um, with regards to people's identity as a college student, I think you really need to take advantage of this time, of this like newfound independence, that this is a great time to really explore. You have resources here to support you, and that's what college is all about. You're like learning your new identity as not only like as an adult if you just turned 18, but also as like you're entering the workforce. Like our job is to make sure that students are educated and trained enough so that they can enter the workforce, which has the entirely new stressors. But that's what the university experience is all about. It's about learning and exploring and figuring out an identity. And you won't, for the most part, won't figure it out, but you'll get a better sense of self, you know? A part of that journey is realizing that if you need help, it's okay. Being part of university, we are very stigma free. We try to make sure that, you know, we're combating decades of stigma, especially from people who come from from cultures and backgrounds where mental health was not prioritized. It might feel foreign to them to seek help. And us at the university, we acknowledge that, right? Many populations were taken advantage of historically, right? Especially marginalized and underrepresented populations in health. You know, like for example, like the Tuskegee experiments, right, with African Americans. That stuff continues on, right? And so we want to make sure that as leaders in public health, as leaders in healthcare, we want to let students know that the goal of seeking help is to essentially help you, is to help students, and we're not taking advantage of you. it might feel like a lonely experience, but the support is here to make sure that you feel comfortable. Mental health, especially, people think that it'll just go away once the stress goes away. It doesn't. Mental health is like exercise, like physical health. It's like exercise. It's like dieting. One healthy meal will not make you healthy if you're eating junk all the time. You know, just because you ate a salad doesn't mean all of a sudden you have low cholesterol. Like, that's not how it works. Mental health is the same thing. You take a stress management webinar, then all of a sudden you're stress free. Nah, that's not how it works. It's a process, it's a journey. All of this stuff takes time, and you'll never really experience perfection. But in terms of prevention, these little like victories, like stress management, like techniques, if you start doing this, especially as a young 20-year-old, the older self will really thank you in the long run. The things we're doing now in our 20s and early 30s, that we'll see the consequences later on in life, like, for example, being diagnosed with high blood pressure earlier, diabetes, mental health issues. It's these are chronic conditions that develop over time. So if we teach prevention skills now in your 20s, the older self will thank you.
Love
I agree with
that.
that one. Right?
That was awesome.
I think, I'm just kidding. Yeah. And actually,
Absolutely.
I was talking to the nutritionist that we have at UNLV. A lot of college students are being diagnosed with high blood pressure at earlier stages. So that's really something to consider. And, you know, high blood pressure, I mean, when you have heightened stress, then you're eating junk and you're drinking a lot of caffeine and you're not exercising and you're getting lack of sleep, which kind of seems like, right, the college student life, essentially. Like, your body can only handle that for so long before it starts, you know, not being able to.
For sure. And like later down the line, like it's going to cost you a lot more money, right? To fix those issues or fix those problems or something. I think that's a big thing when it comes to like mental health as well, too. I think when people think about mental health, like their main drastic one is like, oh, I have to go to therapy. I don't want to go to therapy. I wasn't raised that we go to therapy or something like that. Therapy's expensive, all these different things, which that's why it's so great to start now, especially when you're a student, because then hopefully long term you can develop different tasks or different ways to navigate yourself or navigate situations.
You know, and in terms of mental health too, I'm not saying that people don't need therapy, but a lot of the times people seek therapy services for stuff that could have been prevented. And what I mean by that is we tend, um, especially for us who are not used to addressing our emotions, we tend to hold stress little by little until it builds up, so that things like a bad haircut or an argument with like a roommate or something will set them over the edge to the point where it's like a real serious issue because you were holding in that stress and didn't know how to cope with it while it was happening. You know, what is that like, you know, when you build up and you just explode out of nowhere and you're like, whoa, where'd that come from?
Like the last straw, that
Mm-hmm.
one.
You don't want to get to that point because it, you know what I mean? It's like it's not too late, but if you hold in stress, there are some real big issues that could come out of it, like getting diagnosed with an anxiety disorder, like suicide, you know, like depression, you know. So we want to make sure that we catch those things early enough so that we can prevent it from happening.
Definitely, for sure. Anything else you want to tell us before we're done? Or Christian, do you have any more questions that you might want answered or that we didn't cover?
No, I think that kind of educated me very well.
I love talking about mental health. Mental health is
Mhm.
my favorite thing to talk about for sure. One of my favorites. You'll see in our nutrition one that I clearly love talking about nutrition as well too. So I liked all your analogies because this kind of built up to our webinars. Like earlier, we talked about programming, then we talked about nutrition, and you hit on all those topics. And now we hit mental health. So it's like that wellness wheel that we always preach and talk about as well too. So we gotta get everything right so we're good and healthy.
Yeah, and if anybody wants to talk about like wellness and stuff, I'm always here. I'm on the second floor of the rec. Like you can't. I'm on the second floor of the rec center, but I guess right now you're not allowed to like see me in person. I'm behind a door. Like you can schedule a virtual appointment with me, but it's we just condensed a lot of stuff in like an hour or less, and we can do one-on-one education sessions so that people are well informed and I can help support you so that you don't feel overwhelmed at UNLV. There's a lot of things to worry about right now. We should
Mm-hmm.
prioritize those worries.
Right? For real.
Mm.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much again for coming on and talking with us about this and just taking your time out of your day to help others. And we really appreciate it.
Thanks, Sarah. Thanks,
Well,
Thank
Christian.
you.
awesome. Well, thanks so much. And I hope you have a great day.
Bye.